Here.
Alderman Donahue.
Here.
Alderman Laura present. Alderman Presto.
Here.
Alderman Thompson.
Here.
All here. I'm going to open up with our attorney, Michael Casper, is going to do a brief presentation. Well, I might not be that brief, but it'll be a presentation on the new map presented as the first draft by the city of Wyoming.
Too far away. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, everyone, thanks for having me again. You have up on the board in front of you a draft of the proposed redistricting plan. And before we open it up for comments, I just wanted to explain a little bit about the plan and how I came to make it look the way it does. We have a current redistricting plan, as you all know, that's been in effect for approximately 20 years. And then there was a proposal that we received that everyone seems to agree has been referred to as the CASA plan. So I took those two plans and I tried to come up with what I thought was a fair amalgamum of the two. As you can see, the geographic shapes of the wards are not substantially different amongst the three plans, the current, the CASA plan, and this proposed plan. The changes that I made are substantially three in nature. First and foremost, from the CASA plan resulted in, when I overlaid the addresses of the current elected officials in the city, it resulted in 5 aldermen being geographically located in the same ward. And that seemed to me to be unfair. The voters elected these folks, and it seemed unfair to them to have them arbitrarily be put out of office by this map-making process. So I tried to eliminate that to the best that I could. I think in the current plan that we have, that is largely avoided with one exception, where there's 3 members are in the same ward. The second thing that I did then after that is I looked at the minority demographics of the city and the wards amongst the 3, and the sheet that I handed out is a demographic comparison of the CASA plan and this plan, and I think the CASA plan did a pretty good job of reallocating the populations, and all I did was try to improve a little bit on some of the minority representation issues. And so what I'd like to do is direct your attention to the second to last column on the right side, where it says voting age population 2010 census. And in Illinois, as in every other state in the union, we measure minority voting strength. The barometer that is used is voting age population. And so in this case, it's a chart that sets forth the African American, AA is short for African American. It's the African American voting age population of each of the wards under the proposed plan, and then underneath also in the CASA plan. And what was striking to me about the CASA plan is that it had no districts with a majority African American population. And so what I did is I tweaked just a few of the census blocks a little bit to come up with one ward that is majority African American, which is the 6th ward. You'll see is 55.39% African American population. So that was one of the things that I tried to do. The second thing that I tried to do was I looked then at the Latino voting strength in the other wards, and I noted that in Latino districts, there's an issue that generally persists in this area of the law that is absent from African American districts because of the issue of citizenship. African American districts generally have extremely high levels of citizenship. Hispanic districts have lower levels of citizenship just because of immigration and things of that nature. So you'll see that in the CASA plan, there are 3 districts that are just a little bit above 50% in the Latino population. The 2nd ward is at 52.45%. The 5th ward is at 50.44%. And the 6th ward is at 50.55%. my concern is that those are not truly effective Latino districts because a certain percentage of the people in there are not citizens, and therefore are ineligible to vote. And the people who are going to be ineligible to vote due to citizenship, even though they're of voting age, are more likely to be Latino than they are to be African American or Caucasian. And so for that reason, I think in order to have a truly effective Latino district, the number has to be more than just a little bit, just a smidgen above 50%. So what we did is I took some of that population and condensed it a little bit into the second ward, which you'll see is 59.4% Latino, which I think will result in a strong Latino district, even accounting for the citizenship issue. So you're in, I believe, under this plan, in a position where there's one strong majority African American ward, another strong Latino ward. The first ward is obviously very, very close, still at 48.41%, and the remainder of the wards, as they are under all the other plans, are very strong coalition wards, where meaning that the populations of African Americans and Latinos generally equal majority. So that's my sort of short explanation for the plan as it appears before you today, and that's it.
Thank you. I'll open the floor up to comments on the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's not it. I apologize. The other thing that I tried to do was I took as good a notes as I could during the previous couple of hearings about ideas that, like, for example, and I don't have my notes in front of me, so I apologize. A couple of residents testified about how they didn't like that the plan separated an apartment complex, the blue.
No,
Yeah.
it was that one.
I'm sorry?
Blue Station.
Blue Station apartment from the ward that it has historically been in, and so I didn't change. I changed that to keep that in the ward that it's historically been.
That wasn't a change.
It was already in the seventh ward.
It was already there.
Yeah, the people who made that claim were inaccurate.
And so that's what we tried.
All right, so we'll ask the public to come up here one by one at the podium. Make sure you give your name, address, state the concern that you have, and comment. We'll get started.
I am Kathy Keener, and I live at 2250 Orchard Street in Blue Island. In the course of our negotiations with Mr. Casper, the idea was brought before the CASA group that this administration was considering having a referendum to reduce the number of aldermen in our community. And that because Blue Island is a non-home entity, my understanding is that it would have to be done by referendum. Now, I don't know if that is correct or not, or if you've decided to move forward with that project or not. I just don't know that. But I would just like to say something here. If you plan to go and make a referendum to reduce the number of aldermen in this community, I think you have a moral obligation to tell the voters that before you approve any ward map. Because when you look at these ward maps and you think in terms of only having one alderman per ward, that ward looks a whole lot different. Okay, so I don't know what you're going to do. The idea was presented to CASA. We were not interested in that particular topic, but as a person, I'm just saying, if you are going to do that, you have a responsibility to let the voters know that this is what you plan to do. The other point I'd like to make is that that when we look at the map that's been presented by Mr. Casper, that we believe that the other districts are less compact than the CASA proposal, and it also lists more precincts than the CASA proposal does. And we think that that weakens the map. So I would hope that you would consider these ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Keener, I just want to address your point about the referendum. In doing this project, I thought it was my responsibility to present all the options that were legally available. One of the options that the Illinois Municipal Code allows is for any community by referendum to reduce the number of aldermen from 14 to 7. So any community could do that, including you. So I just raised that as something that was legally permissible, but I for one am not aware of any discussions along those lines. Where it was seriously
Well, that whole
considered.
issue came back to our legal team, and of course, our legal team went to us. Now, on a personal level, I don't know what you did with it, and that's fine. But I am just telling you that if you want to do it, I think you have an obligation to tell the community that that's what you're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening, my name is Mark Keener. I live at 2250 Orchard Street currently in the 7th Ward. When I saw this map, there was several things that came to mind. The first is the issue of compactness. We were able to measure using some accepted indexes on how you measure how compact a voting area is. And the map referred to as the CASA map is an improvement over this map. It's an improvement over our current aldermanic ward map. We don't have all the staircases and the jagged lines and the wards that loop around Vermont Street up by the hospital. So the CASA map is much preferable to this map as far as its compactness, that it deals with the neighborhoods as neighborhoods rather than trying to manipulate the districts just so the incumbents can stay in office. The reason we have representative districts is for the benefit of the population. The population needs to have districts that allow and encourage accountability and access to the political system. What this map does is creates a system that encourages and limits the accountability. It bolsters it's drawn for the benefit of the incumbents and not for the benefit of the population. The reason the CASA map ended up with 5 aldermen in one district because we were going according to neighborhoods. And so we have apparently a neighborhood that is way overrepresented, not only by population, but also by the residents of the aldermen. So when we draw a map that reflects more accurately the neighborhoods in our community, it shows how out of touch our Board of Aldermen already is, and how much improvement can be made by adopting the CASA map. So the issue of compactness can be judged by a couple different indexes or indices. So what you try to do is make them as round as possible. So with city blocks, it wouldn't be round, it would be squared off, but you try to get that ratio, that relationship, close to a point where you can plot out how close this is to an actual circle. And when we look at this map is way off base, that the CASA map is much better as far as creating compact districts. Another issue on this map is minority representation. The handout that we just got conveniently, doesn't bring up the question of citizen voting age population, which is the most reliable way of determining the accountability and the access in a voting district. The total number of population is a good number, the voting age population is a good number, and the best number is citizen voting age population. So when CASA drew our map, we were very interested in citizen voting age population, which has been, that number has been in all of our materials that we've handed out. And we've repeatedly given this information to the city and to everyone in the public. It's on our website. So we're very interested in citizen voting age population, and this map and this handout we got tonight doesn't take that into account at all. So when you look at the citizen voting age population, the map referred to as the CASA map has a majority or a plurality of African Americans in 3 out of the 7 wards. So 3 of the 7 wards, the most number of voters who are citizen voting age is African American, 3 out of 7, and not as Mr. Casper talked about earlier. As far as the Hispanic community, the CASA map has citizen voting age populations where the plurality is 2 of the 7 wards. You know, and the city map does not meet that goal either. So there are several issues that I would like all of you to consider, and also everyone in the public to consider when they look at these maps, that these maps are not made for the accountability of the government to the people, but they are designed to encourage and supplement the incumbents who are already in office. These wards are not compact. They don't accurately represent the neighborhoods of the city. And also, they don't follow the principles of the Voting Rights Act, which encourages expanding the role of minority groups in the political system. So this map does not come close to any of our goals we have for accountability and access by the citizens of Blue Island in this process. So I encourage the committee to not adopt this map and to work on a map that's much closer to the proposed map from CASA and the citizens.
Thank you for that, Mark. Really good points brought up.
Hold on a second. All right, thank you. Go on.
My name is Robert, born and raised in Blue Island. I've been a member of CASA for 6 years. And first off, I'd like to...
What's the last name?
Ornelas, O-R-N-E-L-A-S. So first thing I want to do is comment on a few things that Mike brought up. One of the major things that really unsettled me was the fact that he said that it is unfair to unseat current aldermen because they were elected by the population. Well, here's the thing. That's why we have special elections. We can unseat everybody and re-elect who we want elected. Okay, and everybody in the first ward, that was the major ward. If you see everything split up on one, well, I'm going to tell you something. Everybody who's anybody lives in that ward, and that's why you guys split it up 2 different ways, and it should be split up 1 way. So my main objective here is to make everybody understand in this whole room that the Latino population in Blue Island is the one that's increasing the most out of anyone. The white population is decreasing, I would say unfortunately, because we lose part of our diversification. The black population is increasing, but Latino population is increasing more than any other one. Now, I just have to say to you guys up here that you guys know that this has to be in favor of the current status quo. And I am here to tell you guys right now, I am part of the Latino population. There's a lot more Latinos back here, but CASA stands for Citizen in Action Serving All. So CASA is here to understand that we need a diverse community, because I want Blue Island to come back to the way it was when I was 5, when I was 6, 7, 8, 12, growing up. Very diverse, very friendly, and the political power structure was definitely not the way it is right now. The CASA map provides an extremely better voter representation, especially for Latinos. You know, this is unfortunate. Poor Leticia sitting over here in Ward 4, it shows you how much you guys care about the Latino population up there. We only have 2 Latino aldermen in Blue Island currently. And right now you guys are telling everybody that Leticia is nil, none. Because you said it yourself, you guys don't like unseating aldermen. Well, you just did it in Ward 4. And who do you think is going to be the one that's out? The only woman, Latina alderman. Okay, you guys need to understand that there's repercussions to your actions. And one of the things that's not going to happen, the population is not moving out of Blue Island, right? Especially the Hispanic population is going to continue to increase. Another thing that I want to bring up that Mike said about this whole population of Hispanics and how most of them are undocumented, and that you're drawing the maps to coincide with that. Put more Hispanic populations in there supposedly because a lot of us aren't documented, aren't citizens, you know, so we don't go out and vote. Here's the thing, we live in America, which America says we can become citizens, okay? So what we need to do is we need to move closer to the CASA map. Okay, your first revision, I'm sorry guys, you guys need to throw that out, in my eyes. If you guys don't, you know, that's more power for the courts later on in the future, because things do change. In addition, you know what, I want to just close, I got a few more things here, but I think I made my strongest points. One thing that I do need, that I would like for you guys to keep an open mind on, is we need to create a system in Blue Island that works together with the citizens, because we're not going anywhere, and we're going to get nothing but stronger. That's it.
Mr. Ornelas, one thing I didn't get the address.
2025 Canal Street.
Thank you.
My name is Carol DePace Green. I live at 2731 Orchard Street in Blue Island, and I've lived in Blue Island for the last 16 years. Take a good look at the previous and current proposed ward map options. In the previous map, there was one ward that was significantly gerrymandered. That would be the 4th ward. The proposed city map is not compact as it should be per state law. With the city's proposed map, all 7 wards intersect with Calumet Township by design. The Calumet Township boundary goes down Western Avenue and along the canal. This means that wards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 have some portion or piece of them in Calumet Township. I think the reason these wards were drawn that way and intersect with Calumet Township is to solidify the power base in addition to the elimination of the off-election aldermen. So we would end up having one slate of candidates running during the regular mayoral election, eliminate the other 7 aldermen, and that was included in an email that was sent from Mr. Casper to the legal team. That's how we ended up getting that particular information. So currently what we're seeing is our freedoms diminished, our city services diminished, our municipal government and elected officials failing to represent the Blue Island taxpayers and the residents and the public. We don't appreciate any of these efforts. I believe that Blue Island can be a place where everyone gets a fair say, everyone gets a fair share. But if we're controlled by the power of a select few, yes, Blue Island is in trouble. And please believe me, once you enlarge that map and you take a really good look at it, you'll see every one of those wards has a portion in Calumet Township. I do not believe that was by mistake. I'm positive it was by design. And had I been in charge and wanted it to be done that way, that would also be the order that I would have given as well. No one's going to be safe. No one's going to be better off. Reducing the number of Blue Island aldermen from 14 to 7, having them run only during a mayoral election will only further consolidate the Rita Madigan power and likely eliminate all of the aldermen who were part of the off-election cycle. We should go with a compact map. You can call it the CASA map plan, because consolidating these wards is what's required by state law, not by Carol Green law, Carol DePace Green law, CASA law. It's required by Illinois state law. Gerrymandering every one of the 7 wards was done intentionally. That's why they came up with the term gerrymandering. Thank you. Any questions? Great.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Bertha Oluwumi. I live at 3032 West 140th Street in Blue Island. I've resided there for 45 years. I am one of the people that was also involved in putting together the CASA map. And I want to draw your attention to the 6th Ward, because that's where I live. And that's where I've dealt with the city for 45 years. When we drew the map, we wanted to make sure that the north and the south sides of the canal were represented in different districts, in 2 different wards rather. But the city decided that, of course, everybody below the canal, south of the canal, should go to the 6th Ward. As Hyro knows, the 6th Ward is the last ward in the city of Blue Island when you're traveling through. We've always been forgotten. We're always last. And the city, this committee, is once again making sure that we get kicked in the butt. Because that's what has happened. Because you put us away from the rest of the city. We've never been included as part of the city. Further, the way the map is drawn, we go from Robbins at 139th, if you look at your map, all the way back up to Calumet Township. That puts us in 3 townships, the 6th Ward. We're in Bremen, we're in Worth, and we're in Calumet. It doesn't make sense. Why couldn't Western Avenue be the dividing line? It's so much easier, even for those people who are going to be running for election, when they get out and campaign, if the districts are more compact. Now, I heard Mr. Casper say that there were concerns about where, the aldermen, we wanted to make sure everybody, just for your information, no one is taking your seats. Even if we redrew the map, you will still be alderman where you are until the next election. And then the people will decide if you're going to be in that district. So it's not about protecting the council. That's not why we're here. We're trying to make the city look and be what it really is. And to manipulate numbers and people and say some are registered and some are citizens, we're not going by any of that kind of stuff. Yes, we know all those deviations are there, but that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at actual numbers of people who are registered to vote, whether they live in the city or not. So I'm just saying that I'm very disappointed that what you did to us is ridiculous. You could have just left us alone like you left the 3rd Ward. You didn't do anything up there. Why? We don't understand how you manipulate some and not the rest of them. Any questions? Yes.
Ms. Alwoman, I'm in the second ward, majorities under the canal, and I agree with some of the statements you did say, so
Okay.
I'd like to sympathize with that.
Thank you very much.
You know, Ms. Alone, for me, I wanted to also clarify a couple of comments that you made in there. You know, me being from the 6th Ward, you know, I've expressed with you, you know, the same consent that, you know, we're down at the outer, you know, rims of the city and being geographically divided by railroads and bridges. It's always been a problem of feeling neglected. So I do as well sympathize with that. And that's, you know, what I've been fighting for and strive for to better the services down there. But I wanted to mention to you a couple of comments that you made with the townships. Right now, as the ward stands, it is in 3 townships right now. It's Worth, Thornton, and Bremen. The way this map looks at, it looks like there's a corner that goes over to Calumet, but I don't think that there's any. I'd have to look at the streets. That corner there might be. That's probably the Blue Bridge. There might be a tavern there. So I'm not sure if that would actually put you in 4. You mentioned 3, so it might actually put it in 4. But looking at it, that pocket there, that section has always resided in the 6th Ward. The 6th Ward right now, as it stands, is south of the canal currently. And the way that changes does make it still obviously resides south of the canal. But I just wanted to clarify that point about that it already currently is in 3 townships.
Yes, you're right.
And it
Now
might
it's
be
4.
4, but I would have to look at that section there, see if that actually entails. Was it? So I just want to
Okay,
clarify that point.
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Good
The address
evening.
again, now.
Willie Scott has lived at 11917 Longwood Drive for 26 years now. And as most of you know, I have been complaining here at the City Council for many years about I heard Mrs. Olwami mention the 6th Ward's neglect. I don't think so, not like the 7th. And if you realize, both of those wards are predominantly African American. And so I'm here tonight to participate in the activity of drawing a map that would represent all of the citizens of Blue Island equally. Now, I joined CASA at its inception when they started because I realized that was an organization that was positive. I also am NAACP, Far South Side branch. And so, generally I'm saying that I'm here to represent fairness, have always been. I contribute to this community and has always done so. As an old 82-year-old man, almost, I realize what racism is about. I see it because I was born with it. I grew up under racist circumstances. And as I've grown older, I've watched changes take place beginning in the 50s with the civil rights movements and other things taking place to make progress. I saw African American people going back to school with evenings in the 60s and 70s. And I was proud of the changes that were taking place. But as I stand here tonight, I see us going backwards as a race of people. We're being mistreated and denied, and it seems that all the things that Martin Luther King stood for, whose birthday's coming up on the 18th, or the celebration, I don't know if it's his birthday, but I see all those efforts going down the drain. And it's done so systemically, it's done so in cases like this remapping, redistricting, or whatever. I would ask the citizens of this community to kind of open your eyes. Look at what happened, what has happened over the years that I've stood here at this podium and complained about the lack of services in the predominantly African American community, but there are two of them, one north, one south. And so I've asked this community to consider being fair, changing, realizing that you have actually been acting in a manner that is not favorable to all the people in this city. Blue Island is a beautiful little city, and I could see, and I've always looked at it as small enough to really make a difference if we wanted to. If we really reached out to pull this community together in every respect, we could have a beautiful community here. One where people would want to come and live and raise their families. I joined CASA along with Kathy and Mark Keener, because as they told you earlier, they came to Blue Island to rear their children in a beautiful little community, they thought at the time. But they too were disappointed when they realized that Blue Island has been and still is a racist community. And that's something that you don't want to hear, and I understand it. But I see it, I know it, I live it wherever I go in this city. And so I'm appealing to you to draw the map, or consider a map that is going to be as inclusive as possible for all the citizens of Blue Island. Just to give you an example, before I moved to Blue Island, my first home was in Chicago. And I became the first block club president. I did that because I'm concerned about my neighborhood, or I was at the time. And so I moved to Blue Island, and I did the same thing. I went from door to door and organized the neighborhood watch group, number 37. And so we were doing well with that as far as bringing the community together. We'd have cookouts and barbecues, and we were supported by the aldermen. Some of you may know Alderman Elton, who passed. Was a beautiful man. He serviced that community. I have served as a judge of election most of my time in Blue Island. I have served on the retiree group, I've forgotten the name of it now, but they closed it. I served there. I'll give my services to wherever I can help and support this community. And I'd like to think that at some point we will all come together and serve this community as best we can. Now certainly, looking at this map, I wasn't really that interested in the particulars, except I did look at no changes in Ward 3. That was obviously by design, as someone has stated earlier. And I don't know if I don't know how that would, in other words, that was by, as I said, by design, that there were no changes there, basically. It looks political to me. If you look at Ward 7, there are no businesses there in the new map. There's one building, one business there, that's the liquor store, at 119. And that is not a desirable situation either, because those people ignore our community pretty much too. I don't think they make a contribution to our area at all. I'm going to just quit here by saying to you that here is, I think, a great opportunity for Blue Island to take the initiative to make a difference, to make change, to bring all the people together and make Blue Island a better place to live. Thank you.
I'd like to make one point of clarification. Mr. Scott, you have, I don't know how many blocks it is, just something in case, and I can't really see it here. There's 4 or 5 blocks of Western Avenue in the 7th ward.
That's right.
That's in this map. Not, well, one way or the other, I just wanted to let you know that.
From 119,
From 120 something to 100, probably 120, 4 or 5 blocks, looks like on the map there. Or more, if you count one side of the street. So maybe
Yeah, well,
119 to like 123rd, depending on what side of the street.
so it'll be only on the east side of the street.
On the other side too.
On the west side.
Oh, goes to the west side.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Oliver Guzman, 12547 Irving Avenue. I just want to say one of the opening statements that you had here was to have the aldermen retain their power here. And I think that we really should look past that. It's not really about power, it's about the citizens and wards. And I think the CASA map here, the voting ages, the way they have their the population on the Hispanic and whites, I think that's more inclusive, that's more diverse than the current map that the city has got going. I think my whole thing right here is have diversity, where everybody's not enclaved into a certain, I know it's very hard to have like, to include different racial populations all together in the neighborhood. But the more you get it that way, the more we be combined as a city. I think the CASA map does that more. And I really don't think that the alderman's power really should be quite such, the president alderman's power should be quite such a point of reference right now. Because what we're trying to do is make everything equal and more diverse. I have talked to Domingo Vargas more quite often. He's quite like my neighbor. I've talked to him that I'd like to see the city become more diverse. We have to have more diversity in our wards, and I think the CASA map does that. That's my personal thing. As far as the voting ages are, the voting ages are concerned, or the voting blocks, even though the Hispanics, I understand that on your map you give like 59% towards the Hispanic, but I think it's a giveaway. I think that that the CASA map it's got more of a equal percentage of the voting ages there. So I really think the CASA map really has more diversity. It's more inclusive, and it's got more into the middle of the city for all the wards. My personal opinion. Thank you very much.
Hi, I've got written testimony, so I'll just bring copies up, and there are some. So I think you all know me. My name is Ruth Greenwood. I'm an attorney with the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, and I run the Voting Rights Project. I went through and did a comparison of the CASA plan with the city proposed plan. You'll see I put in the section of the Illinois Municipal Code on page 1 that sets out that the requirements under state law include that the ward should be as nearly equal in population, that they should be as of compact and contiguous territory as applicable, and that you try to not split precincts. So with respect to total population deviations, both of the plans are within the acceptable safe harbor of 10%. I noticed that in the city proposal, all of the wards that they recreated are below 1% in deviations, but Ward 3, which was kept exactly the same in terms of population, is a little over 1%. I'm sorry, a little still under 1% in deviation. In terms of compactness, or contiguity, they're all contiguous. In terms of compactness, I've put in 2 of the standard tests that are used in legal cases, the REC test, spelled R-E-O-C-K, and the perimeter test. So those scores are on pages 4 and 5. And you can see on page 4, for example, that the mean, so the average compactness under the REC test for the castle proposal is 0.42. Higher is better here. Higher is closer to a circle. So that's even better than the 1996 plan, which was 0.4. And then you'll see that the city proposal is back down at 0.33, so it's about 75% as good. Then if you look on the next page at the perimeter, it's basically doing the perimeter versus the size. Anyway, you'll see that the city proposal has the highest level of perimeters because it is circling around and snaking around more than the others. You'll see on page 5, I've listed the splitting of precincts, and I put on pages 8 and 9 the pictures, so you can see I just pulled the precincts from the Cook County GIS site, and so you can see which precincts are split. And so the CASA plan splits 13 precincts. Many of them are split because of the way the city is drawn, and the city proposed plan splits 15, so that's more splits, which I think makes it less optimal. The last, you'll see I listed all my data sources on page 7, so you're welcome to go to them and download all the data. The last area that I list in here on page 6 is the protection of minority voting rights. And to talk about this, I wanted to introduce my colleague from the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, Jorge Sanchez. He's litigated plenty of voting rights cases, and so he was going to explain to you, his conclusions on how I think the CASA proposal is more optimal with respect to protecting minority rights.
As Ms. Greenwood stated, my name is Jorge Sanchez. My title is Senior Litigator for the Chicago Midwest Regional Office of the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund. We're a national nonprofit civil rights organization that voting rights work is really our bread and butter, and has been since our founding, and continues to be. I wanted to address a couple things. Mr. Casper talked about drawing the map to optimize what he called fairness to incumbents. But what this ignores is that these incumbents have been elected under a map that's unconstitutional. This map is being redrawn precisely at this moment because it was people from CASA who raised the fact that the city hasn't remapped in 20 years. And so to the extent that there's some unfairness involved, it strikes me that the unfairness is to the city residents who will be required to continue to have the vast majority of incumbents safely ensconced in new districts so that they can continue to be incumbents, despite the fact that the reason for their incumbency, like I said, is this unconstitutional map in the first place. I also want to take issue with the idea of looking at voting age population as a standard for assessing the effectiveness of districts. The Lulak versus Perry case, pretty much without argument, I think, set, and part of the Strickland, set a measure of effectiveness, or rather, you cannot state a claim under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act unless an additional effective district can be drawn for a certain minority group, whether that be Latino, Black, Asian. And the measure of that effectiveness, the Supreme Court said quite clearly, is if a district isn't at least 50% citizen, if you can't draw a district that is at least 50% citizen voting age population in that process, then you don't have a claim. And the interesting thing why the CASA proposal and the analysis that Ms. Greenwood did is important is because voting effectiveness and proportionality can really only be measured by looking at citizen voting age population. Mr. Casper is correct that Latino population has lower numbers. We're a younger population. We also have lower numbers of citizens. And as a result, the use of citizen voting age population is hurtful to our community, but that's the status of the voting rights law. What the map that the city does, it's interesting to see what happens. You know, we refer to like the 1996 map in the parlance of, in the lingo of voting rights as a benchmark map, right? And so you look at where the numbers stand in 1996 based on 2010 numbers. And when you do that, you see that there are two wards, the 6 and 7, are already above 50% black citizen voting age population. And you also see that 3 comes awfully close. And then you see that in the city proposal, in the council proposal, they take those percentages up slightly. From 7, it goes up about 2 percentage points, and Ward 6 goes up about 3 percentage points. But in the city proposal, what they do is they make the citizen voting age population go from 57.84% up to 73.59%, and they maintain Ward 3 at 47.73%. There's arguably a packing claim here, because instead of distributing the additional population into a ward that isn't affected, they put additional African American population into a ward that was already effective, based on CBAP, and also based on the fact that they are electing at least, both of these wards, 6 and 7, are electing at least one African American alderman. The other thing I wanted to just touch on briefly is this issue of compactness. I think compactness matters not only for legal reasons, but really for practical and governance reasons. It's really, I think part of the purpose of gerrymandering, if you will, as I've seen it over the years, is oftentimes it happens as a way to preserve incumbency, in the sense that once you start drawing irregular districts, that tends to favor the incumbent, because it's a lot harder to organize politically in a geographically dispersed district. It's a lot harder to organize politically in a district that starts to have curving lines, because you don't necessarily know, as you're stepping from one place to the other, am I in this ward or that ward? And the more twists and turns that you have, I think that's actually something that, whether it's intentional or not, has the effect of favoring the incumbent, because they're already sitting in the seat based on those lines. And so based on this, I strongly urge this commission and ultimately the City Council of Blue Island to take a really hard look at the CASA proposal and understand that there are serious ramifications that flow from decisions that you all have made. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'll do a call 3 times. Anybody, any other public comments? Any other public comments?
I just want to reiterate what he had just mentioned, is that, the Hispanic population really is not really that representative in all these wards. We need to get more Hispanic representation in these wards, since we are a growing population here. Even though I like the idea of diversity, but we are growing pretty much in the city. And as also, but there aren't that many Hispanic aldermen here. And one of the aldermen, Letitia, from what I understand, is going to be losing, probably when losing on this ward changes, maybe her position. And we need to get more representative in the wards here. That's about it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other public comments? You have, is there anybody here that has any suggested changes? Or want to submit anything to the committee? Outside of the verbal. Yeah, we're having another hearing next Thursday, so if you want to write some stuff down, go next Thursday. Our next meeting will be 7 p.m. 14th, same time, same place, same channel. So I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing. Seconded by Alderman Donahue. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nay?